Good news for Ethiopia. Good news for Ethiopian government. Ethiopia has been waiting for this news. Secondly, what happened in Egypt where Hassan Sheikh met with Sisi, Abdul Fattah al-Sisi, Egyptian president. What did Hassan Sheikh say after meeting with Sisi? What did Sisi say? Any signs of reactivation of trilateral Egypt-Eritrea Somalia alliance against Ethiopia? Let's start with the good news. It is a good news. It seems we know that Ethiopia is one of the largest recipients of US assistance. And Trump government, we know, is reducing foreign assistance. USAID almost dismantled, and USAID has come under State Department control now. USAID projects are being suspended. Health care projects suffering too. Since millions of people, I would say, millions are dependent on aid in Ethiopia. And US is a major contributor. That is why US decision of suspension of aid was very alarming. US embassy in Ethiopia today issued a statement about US assistance for aid for Ethiopia. Arvind Masinga is the US ambassador to Ethiopia. Arvind confirmed that the USAID has come now under the control of US State Department. But he announced good news for Ethiopia. He said, firstly, bilateral assistance agreements will continue. If US in the past signed an agreement with the Ethiopian government to provide aid to Ethiopia, the agreements will continue. Firstly. Secondly, food support agreements, food support will also continue. Another good news for those who are dependent on food aid in Ethiopia. By the way, refugees, IDPs had been very worried recently because it was being said that food aid delivery could decrease. But US Embassy says that there will be no reduction in food aid. Lastly, healthcare projects. There won't be any change. And there are lots of healthcare projects in Ethiopia which were completed by the US in the past. Some have been underway when the US announced dismantlement of USAID. So AIDS patients, it's a good news for them because they have been recipients of US assistance. It's a good news, but we must not forget that Trump is threatening BRICS. BRICS countries meeting in Brazil, and Trump is saying that those countries which are joining BRICS, which are aligning with BRICS, they'll have to face 10% tariff. Everyone, every country which aligns with BRICS will be charged 10% tariff. So on the one hand, we're hearing good news that US aid for Ethiopia will continue. On the other hand, we know that Ethiopia is it's one of the main countries which are now members of BRICS. And BRICS is preparing to launch its payment system to counter Western countries and US payment system. If the payment system, which China is working on is introduced. BRICS currency is introduced. BRICS member states start trading in the new currency or in their own currencies. That will be a big blow to the dominance of dollar, to the dominance of US. That is why Trump is threatening BRICS countries, and Ethiopia is a BRICS member. Let's see. One last point is that it's not a matter of pride to be dependent on aid. So if Ethiopian people are dependent on foreign aid, it's nothing. There's nothing to be proud of it about it. Ethiopia must ensure that it feeds its people. If it keeps its people dependent on foreign aid, that just shows how incompetent the government is. If the government can transform Addis Ababa, if it can build resorts, if it can build a modern military, why can't it uh, provide food to its own people? Second words, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Somalia's President Hassan Sheikh have held a meeting. We're waiting for this meeting because we've been hearing that Egypt is trying to reactivate the trilateral alliance of Egypt, Eritrea, and Somalia to corner Ethiopia and to thwart Ethiopian plans of inauguration of GERD. Uh, Again, one clarification which I have been mentioning in recent videos too. Egypt is not planning to bomb the dam. Egypt wants to force Ethiopia to sign a legally binding agreement. And Egypt wants Ethiopia to commit that Ethiopia won't build any more dams. Egypt wants Ethiopia to commit that Ethiopia will operate dam in coordination with Egypt. Everything will be shared with Egypt. There are some other points too. Ethiopia is not willing to sign this legally binding agreement. So in coming days, we'll see more pressure from Egypt through African countries, through US, through European countries. Hassan Sheikh was invited by Sisi to come to Egypt. There the two leaders met. And after their meeting, Hassan Sheikh issued a message. Sisi spoke there. Hassan Sheikh did not say a word about River Nile, about water security, about GERD. He only talked about bilateral relations in his message after meeting with Al-Sisi. He said, "We have agreed to work to usher in a new era of partnership, strategic partnership, etc., etc." There is nothing concrete in Hassan Sheikh's message. There's nothing in this message pointing towards Hassan Sheikh's support for Egypt on the issue of GERD. Maybe they agreed on something behind closed doors. Egypt is publicly reiterating its position that it won't allow any non-Red Sea country to set foot on Red Sea or to establish a naval base there. Egypt is adamant that it won't allow Ethiopia to have a naval base. I think Egypt might agree to Ethiopian naval presence in Red Sea. If Ethiopia agrees to sign a legally binding agreement about GERD with Egypt, which Ethiopia does not want. That is why tensions had to continue. So far, Hassan Sheikh, at least publicly, did not say a word against Ethiopia. Don't know what the two leaders agreed behind closed doors. Thank you for watching.